Welcome back to the podcast. We're so excited to have you all listening today. We're here with Johnna, and Johnna was in the Happiness Hills troubled teen home. And I know that her story is really going to be inspirational to y'all, and we just cannot wait to dive in and hear all about it. Without further ado, welcome, Johnna. How are you?
I am excited to be here. A
Yeah,
little
Good.
tired, but it's fine.
excited. Yeah, we are excited to have you here. Jenny and I love getting the chance to meet with people who have really been in the trenches of
Yes.
what this weapon of religion is. And so we cannot wait to hear your story. What is Happiness Hills? I have heard about them, but not very much. So
Yes.
I can't wait for you
So
to
it's
share.
actually one single hill, not plural, just a hill. So Happiness Hill. And it was named after a Grace Livingston Hill, who is a
Yes.
Christian fiction and writer. The founder's wife apparently loved it, and it was on a hill. So there we have the
So,
name. Survivors call it Unhappiness Hill, or more frequently, Happiness Hell, because that's pretty accurate. So Happiness Hill started in the early 90s. The last director of Rebecca Home, which was the big roll-off home, when they were shutting down, he and the principal of the school left in the middle of the night with a few of the girls that were left over and went on over to Union, Mississippi, and Happiness Hill was born. So that is where it started. Raymond Palmer, the founder, his daughter Cheryl was one of the girls who died in the plane crash with Lester Roloff.
oh, wow.
So that's their background and where it came from when Texas was shutting down all the roll-off stuff. They went to a state that wasn't doing that. And it's the South. It's still really religious and really racist. I had never experienced, even I'm from Missouri. It's not like the Midwest is particularly diverse, but I had never experienced that kind of religious oppression or racism in the ways that I saw there
Wow.
in Union, Mississippi. When I talk about this, I usually launch in with like how I got there. And because that's just a wild, ridiculous, like, what is happening kind of story. So, my sophomore year of high school, I had a knee surgery from athletics. I did cheer and soccer and volleyball, and I was an active kid. And I went from doing all that, being a straight A student, to having a knee surgery and having strep throat 11 times in one winter.
Oh no.
And I was part of, it was a Christian school, part of BBFI, which is Baptist Bible Fellowship International. And because it was a private school, they just kept letting me go. Actually, it was end of sophomore year that all of this happened, or excuse me, freshman year. So my mom was diligently going once a week and getting all of my homework and bringing it home. And I had undiagnosed ADHD, which has a lot of comorbidities, including that anxiety surrounding perfectionism. I had
Mhm.
been a straight A student. I was on speech and debate. I was honor society. I did all of the things. And now, not only was I not getting social interaction, but I was trying to do all this work on my own. And she would bring me 10 things and I would send five back. And she would bring me 10 more things. And it snowballed. And I
Yeah.
did not grow up in a family or culture where I even knew how to ask for help. Didn't know that was allowed. So I didn't. And the day I turned 16, I dropped out of school. I didn't know another way. I didn't know how to not be a straight A student. I did not know how to not excel. My parents were convinced I was on drugs. And that's another part of my story that we'll pop into in a bit. I was not. I smoked pot for the first time. I was like 35, okay? 30, something right in there. Never had happened when I was a teen. I was sexually active and I'd had the same boyfriend for 2 years.
Mm.
So I wasn't doing anything abnormal or crazy. I just got behind and didn't know how to ask for help.
Yeah.
And so my youth pastors suggested Happiness Hill to my parents, and they paid for it. They were well off, and I had dated their son briefly while my long-term boyfriend and I were on a break, like 3 weeks. And they were afraid that I would de-virginize their son.
Gosh. So they were like, please take this girl
Yeah.
away.
So not only take her away, but we'll pay for it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I
wow.
was told, okay, you're going to this place. It's going to be great. You're going to get therapy. You're going to get healing. There's lots of activities. You'll be with other girls your own age, because I had endured a sexual assault, and mom thought that a lot of things were coming from that,
Mm.
which honestly, in the 90s was pretty forward thinking of her, that this
Yeah.
was probably trauma related. This was dad's MO, was as soon as the girls became teenagers, get them out of here because they weren't controllable anymore.
Huh.
He was very abusive, and I'm a Baptist Bible Fellowship missionary kid.
Oh, wow.
So I my I'm adopted. They're both adoptive parents. She married him when I was 8, and all of the rules changed. And then I was in this situation where I didn't know how to ask for help. The rules were weird.
Yeah.
I started dating guys I viewed them as protectors. They were around a lot because I didn't want to get beat anymore. And it would be as simple as I came down the stairs later than he thought I should for dinner. And there were broken bones. Like, it wasn't, not that any abuse is excusable, but we're not talking about spankings or a slap across the face. These were like, he broke both of my collarbones with his bare hands,
Oh my gosh.
shoving me into a wall. I was
Oh,
12 when that happened.
that's
And
awful.
we ended up coming home from the mission field because of that. My mom was brave enough to call and say what was going on, and we got called home. So, anyways, youth pastor said this is going to be a great place for her, and it was sold to me as a bag of goods that was fantastic and going to be helpful and healing, and somewhere I could catch up with school because you could move at your own pace, because it was ACE paces.
Yes, I knew you were going to say that. I
Yeah,
wondered.
you could totally move
Face.
at your own pace. And I'm still struggling with some subjects now at a college level because I didn't get the basic information in high school because I test no other. And I am so good at garbage in, garbage out. So I would shove that stuff in my head, take the test, move right along. Parents didn't even take me. While we were waiting, they sent me to my biological mom's house for about a month. My biological mom, my adopted mom are sisters. Biological being the youngest, adopted mom being the oldest. And so they sent me there, bust 4 weeks of my entire teen life.
Oh, yeah.
I felt loved and seen and just part of a family. And my biological mom's husband, who I very much claim as my dad, he even said to her, we could take her and run.
Yeah.
And they had two small, like I had two young siblings at the time. I'm the oldest by 10 years. So my sister was 6 and my little brother was 2 or 3. And mom didn't know yet, but she was pregnant. But they actually considered just disappearing with me
Yeah.
to not have this happen. And I know she sometimes still very much regrets it, blames herself to a degree, but no one could have known what's going to happen. I honestly, including my adoptive parents, because they were sold a bill of goods just as much as I was. So they did not drop me off. They put me on a private plane with my youth pastors, owned by someone in the church. And I got up that morning. Mom brought me a Mountain Dew because that was life, and a dessert that I had made the night before, laced with something.
Oh
Because I
no.
remember being super groggy at the airport, and I'm an if you can't tell, there's three other bookshelves in this room. I'm an avid reader, and I have been since I was a little kid. So I had a great book I was in the middle of in my lap. And the next thing I remember, we were hitting the ground, like landing, and we were already there. And so I get out of the car. There is this giant man, and they pass off my stuff and me, and then they get back in the plane.
No
And
way.
I get in the car with this giant man, and off we go. And I realized very quickly we were not having a conversation, and nervous and teenager with ADHD, I was like, "So, how's it going? What you doing?" And he was like, "Driving." "Oh,
Oh my
okay. So
God.
we're not talking. Okay, got it."
Uh-huh.
Got back out. The giant man turned out to be David Dye, who was the principal of the schools on the farm for Roloff and had come to co-found Happiness Hill.
Yeah, I really recognize that name. And so that what year was all of this?
So this was February of 96. And I woke up as we were pulling in the driveway, and I saw dogs. And I'm a dog lover. So I immediately was like, "Oh my God, they're dogs. It's going to be great." And then, and this is probably the funniest part, like it just was so surreal. We turned the corner to pull up to the front of the house, and there's a dog house. And I think, "Oh my God, another dog." The biggest cat I've ever seen in my life is on a chain attached to the doghouse. And I'm just like, "That's odd."
That.
That's
And
your
then
moment of, huh, this is weird. What
whoop,
is
cat
happening?
on a chain. This cat was probably 30 pounds. Like it was ridiculously huge, aptly named Fat Cat. And we go in, and then he takes out a key and locks the door with a key behind us. And that was the moment it went from, "Wow, this is strange," to, "Oh crap, what is happening?
Yeah.
Why do we have a door locked with a key?" And they took me into the office, and I was given the "you got really lucky" talk, because we had just had an ice storm across the Midwest and South, and they didn't have running water yet. They had just gotten electricity back. So I didn't get the cavity search and lice scrub down that most girls got.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was like, "What?" So, cat on a chain, locked door, "You want to search my huh?" And then they opened a suitcase and said, "Okay, you can't wear what you have on, and pick something from your clothes." And I looked down, I'm like, "These are not my clothes." And she was like, "They are now." And I was like, "Oh."
Oh my gosh. What's so crazy is growing up in the church like you did, you probably had to wear skirts and
I
everything
went to a
anyway.
Christian school. They already had to be like
Yeah.
3 inches below the knee, your
Right.
bones covered, not sleeveless. All of that was already standard, but this was so strict that even my clothes from my Christian school were not appropriate for Happiness Hill.
Wow.
Was it more like a uniform then? Because a lot of the other TTI survivors we talked
No,
to, a lot of them have to wear like the same clothes.
we had three uniforms. So we had a uniform for school that we had to wear during the day, which was friggin' hideous. It was this polyester shapeless elastic waist maroon skirt and like
Ah.
mid calf, a white sailor colored shirt, and a little tie that was maroon polyester that matched
Yes.
our
See,
skirt.
that sounds really familiar to what they used to wear at the Rebecca homes.
Yeah.
So that's where they all came from. So they
Mhm.
actually had brought some of the clothes from Rebecca, because if you were on confinement, which was awful for getting X amount of demerits, it was the red and white checked button up shirt and the red skirt So that was the signal for confinement. And then if we were on tour, we had special outfits, which honestly were equally, if not more hideous than our school outfits, because in my personal opinion, they didn't match. So same hideous maroon skirt, but with a pink polo. Why though?
Yeah.
Pink and maroon.
Yeah,
I
it's a good
can't
one.
even, yeah, that is really, oh man.
Okay, so I have some pictures here. So this is the Palmers. And sorry, I have to like look around to make sure I've got it. So that's our everyday wear.
Mm.
The worst.
So very like Amish Walmart.
Yeah. That's a good
And
way to put it.
it,
Yeah. At the
well,
time, it was
yes,
probably more Kmart though, right?
Yeah, Walmart.
both.
Okay.
Here's a good one. Let me pop this out of my wonderful and hideous. We made the
I love
yeah.
that.
Oh, here's Happiness Hill itself.
Uh-huh. Wow.
And
It looks like it could be good, but then it's hell, like you said.
yeah, it that is a lie.
Yeah, from
Right.
all
Yeah.
outside perspectives, it looks like a nice place, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
Those are school uniforms.
Yeah, with the ties.
That's
Right.
actually me with the long hair, with my back to everyone, because we couldn't have haircuts while we were there, which is just silly.
Insane.
Thought I had one of our tour outfits. Let's see. Oh, here's someone wearing
Oh,
that's
the
the
red.
whole oh man.
It's the
Hideous.
worst. Doesn't
Ugh.
it just give you the creeps still when you like
It's
the creepy collies? People don't know what that
my
is
husband
like.
and I were shopping the other day and I touched a pair of workout pants and they had that polyester feel. And I had the biggest ick. Like immediately, I was like, huh, what is
Yeah.
wrong with you? And I was like, feels like Happiness Hill. So,
Hey, I think I have a Bible cover that kind of looks like your album.
I love
yep,
that.
I think we all did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was not a uniform in our day to day when we weren't in school, but still really strict as far as the dress code, not 3 inches below the knee, like mid calf or longer,
Yeah.
shoulders covered, collarbones covered, obviously no midriff, even if you lifted your hand straight over your head. So after I came out of the office in my newly me clothes, they sat me with my new room captain, who each room had its own person in charge that was another girl that had been there long enough to be trusted. And I wish one of us still had these, but no one does. She went over the rules. And I don't remember many of them. It was one sheet of paper with demerit quantities listed next to each for what you would get docked for. And one of them was saying bad words. And I was like, okay, that's understandable. Came from a Christian school, whatever. But, and I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. You can't say but.
fart. Fart was on the list.
Uh-huh.
We just talked about this.
Yeah.
Like,
We just talked about this. Yeah.
and I was like, what am I supposed to call it?
Toot.
Oh, no, fluff.
Fluff. Oh my gosh. Fluff is
Which,
so
If you know
embarrassing.
the modern connotation of that,
right.
way
Yes.
worse.
Yeah, it totally is.
Did not, nor will I ever fluff you. But I did for almost 2 years because I had to.
Okay. The word I've been thinking this week as we've been talking is conformity. And even within conversations, like you have to conform to a certain way of talking
Yeah.
that is so ridiculous and embarrassing and annoying. It's just, and then that's what could get you in trouble. It's so arbitrary. Like there's no
Mhm.
reason behind that.
So we had a dorm mother upstairs. So we were upstairs girls and downstairs girls. Downstairs girls were more trusted because hard or easier to escape, even though all of the doors and windows were locked and had alarms. Still, easier to get out the first floor window if you get it open than the second floor. So new girls went upstairs. Our dorm mother upstairs was a former Jubilee home, so the adult roll-off home.
Yes. Uh-huh. Get
I
there.
never know quite what to call us. Attendee, survivor,
Yeah.
brainwash victim. And it was almost like she wanted to make us as miserable as she was.
Yeah.
She was a mean, horrible woman. And she made up her own rules
Mm.
that also we would get demerits for. My hair naturally parted in the middle and was halfway down my back. It did what it did. Like it did two things. It went up or it did that. And we had to wear our hair down for school, for church, like no ponytails, no braids, no buns, nothing. And so mine parted in the middle. It just did it. I constantly got demerits for my hair. Like I'd part it on the side and whoop, it'd be back in the middle because it was hippie. The
No.
70s were
Oh
over.
my
We were
gosh.
in 96, man. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So it's still a joke with girls that I was there with. It gets brought up in our social media group every once in a while that I got to the point I was so sick of getting demerits for parting my hair the way it parted that I started parting it here and did a comb over.
Over. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And my hair, I trained it so hard during that year and 10 months. It is really difficult to part it in the middle now.
Mhm.
So one of my body trauma from being at
Yeah.
Happiness Hill
Yeah.
is my hair won't part in the middle. But
What?
she made other rules like if you were on confinement, so over 15 demerits for the week, you had to keep your chin touching your chest, so all the way down for 55 minutes out of every hour.
Oh my gosh, that's so bad for your neck.
Developing while you're still developing
Yeah.
that
That's
bone structure and cartilage and muscle strength, I actually have permanent neck damage
Yeah.
from
Believe it.
that I can't pop my neck. My chiropractor has a hard time popping my neck and is just constantly like, you are the most difficult to
Yeah.
mhm,
adjust because it's
mhm.
still, I wake up almost every morning with a crick in my neck.
Yeah.
I have to have a special pillow because I can't get to sleep without it. I travel with my special pillow because I cannot sleep without it. It's permanent damage. But she made up just all these arbitrary rules, and that was one of many.
I asked you, one of the things you had mentioned is that you had knee surgery before you went there.
Mhm.
Now, some of the other kids, they're adults now, but I still call them kids because I picture them there. Kids
Well,
had,
we kind of get stuck there, so that makes sense.
yeah, PTSD is
Mhm.
real, folks. And where they talked about all of the physical labor plus all of the different types of punishments
Mhm.
and then also lack of medical care. I'm already, my mind is stuck on the fact that you mentioned that, and I'm just desperate to know what happened to your knee because I'm so worried for you.
Oh, I was healed by then.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
was good to go. Now my other knee's angry, but that's just neither here nor there. That's just life.
Okay, so it didn't blow out your knee or do bad things to.
No, I did that doing sports before I ever went, but we did not get medical care. And I have chronic migraines, like debilitating chronic migraines that I see a neurologist every 12 weeks for. I've had migraines. I got diagnosed at 2. Who gets diagnosed at 2 with migraines? Me, yay. They wouldn't even give me Tylenol or Advil or anything when I had a migraine. I must be faking. I
Oh, yeah.
was not that kid. I had a weird allergy. Thank God I grew out of this one because I love it now. I was allergic to cream cheese.
Oh,
And one of the meals on rotation was Swedish meatballs, which are meatballs stuffed with cream cheese. I still had to eat it. And I would vomit every time afterwards and then be in trouble that I threw it up because I must be making myself throw up.
Did they ever make you consume your own vomit? Because I know that's been something
Not
that
me
I've heard.
personally. However, yes, it did happen. To go forward with that, I will say that my husband saw a video of our portions and was so angry he had to get up and leave the room
really?
because he said that is more than a grown man should be eating. And some of these girls were 11 and 12. And if you did not finish your food, oh, man, my first meal there was a trip. we had apples almost every meal, which I am amazed that I still love apples, but man, I can get down on an apple. So I eat my apple, and my room captain's like, "You're not done." And I was like, "No, I'm certainly done." And she was like, "Yeah, no, you've got to eat more of your apple." And I'm holding a core going, "Where? Like
Right.
what is it you want me to eat here?" So I take another couple of careful bites around the ends, and she's like, "Yeah, no, you're not there." She shows me her like pencil thin core, and that's my expectation. And I was like, ew, gross. We had milk with almost every breakfast. I didn't know then, but I'm lactose sensitive. I've always disliked milk. My body didn't want it,
Yeah.
yet I had to drink that glass of milk every morning at breakfast. So if you did not finish a meal, you received it back with the next meal and that meal.
Oh.
And that would keep accumulating until you broke or the food spoiled. And then you would just
Why
have extra.
why do you think that they were like overfeeding you guys? What now that you're an adult and you've taken
Yeah.
classes in psychology and stuff like that, what do you think the purpose of that was?
They were actually really open with why they did that, which was
Oh,
very counter to what happened at roll off. They were fattening us up so we couldn't go home and be whores like we were when we got there.
No, like
wow.
fours, like size four? Is that
Oh,
what
No,
no,
whores.
whores.
Whores! Oh, I'm like,
Whore.
gosh, the idea that I still just cannot wrap my mind around the fact that they talk to kids like that and then use verbiage like that, and where that was what they believed about you guys. And
Yep.
it makes me so angry. And
I
also,
gained
they're
55 pounds while I was there.
holy cow. The crazy part is it also makes me really, it's like this weird reverse body shaming. Also, like for women who have that as a profession, like you could be a big bone girl. Come on, just
Yeah.
stereotype that you gotta
And
be skinny to.
for me, I was probably a hair underweight, not much, but I was really athletic. So
Yeah.
I was pretty thin when I got there. The sedentary lifestyle, because they did not do forced labor there,
Oh,
or at
really?
least not like the out kind back-breaking forced labor. Ours was all very homemaker adjacent.
Mhm.
Like you did rotations as rooms. So one week you'd be upstairs cleaning, you'd be on bathrooms one week, you'd be on kitchen duty one week, and it just rotated throughout. And kitchen duty was the worst because Saturday morning, while everyone else in the world was done with their chores and having free time, you were mopping the floor on your hands and knees the entire kitchen and dining room.
Huh.
And then Mrs. Palmer would come through and swipe it. And if she, like 4 or 5 places, if she felt even a bit of grit, you started over.
So, how many kids, girls were there? Because it's just girls. There were no boys,
Yes,
right? How
all
many girls
girls,
were there?
generally 25-ish. So it was one of the smaller ones, which I don't know if that's good or bad because you couldn't hide.
Yeah.
Because no blending in, you were focused all the time.
And that size home, though. Where did you guys like looking at that picture? I'm just thinking, where did they fit everyone?
There were 3 bedrooms up, four technically. One was the dorm moms. So 3 bedrooms for girls upstairs. Each bedroom had 2 sets of bunk beds. And then there were dormer windows that there was another bed shoved in, which was actually a privilege because you didn't have to share. It was like your own stinking space. And then there were 3 rooms downstairs with had 2 sets of bunk beds, and one was the room because it had just 2 twin beds.
Oh,
And if
wow.
you
Mm.
hit that room, you had arrived. They did have a second hall that had Brother Palmer's office and 2 more rooms. They actually opened that right after I left because they had an influx of girls come in and were over census. They opened those other 2 rooms up.
So
But
I'm curious. Okay, so you had mentioned that the upstairs was for girls who really weren't trusted. There was like a supervisor up there with you guys. You had the downstairs where there were more trusted girls. were so, in talking with other survivors, especially some of the guys from the Bethel Boys Home, which is also affiliated with
Yep,
Happiness
roll off.
Hill
Yep.
and the Lesser Roll Off Rebecca Home, Jubilee, all of they're all connected. And we will do an episode at some point where we connect all of them and show you guys how they're all connected. But for the sake of this episode, I just wanted to ask, like, a lot of the Bethel Boys had said that as you're there and you gain trust from the leadership, there tends to be like a little bit of a hierarchy that comes into play. And then a lot of times the actual kids would end up being the abusers because they're also afraid of being abused by the leadership there. So it tends to be this cycle of survival that everyone's in, and you're doing whatever you can do to make it through. Was there any of that at Happiness Hill?
Yeah, my eye actually twitched when you started saying that. And this is probably one of the most emotional things for me is because I was an abused kid. I knew how to play a game. So I very quickly became a trusted girl. And I was there past 18 because I had no way to get home.
Mm.
And my parents didn't want me back yet.
So
So
how many years were you there in total?
a year and 10 months.
Okay.
So it was 4 months past my 16th birthday when I went in, and 2 months past my 18th birthday when I left.
Wow. Wow.
So if you also were an older girl, like more grown, and had been there a long time, then you really started getting more responsibility. Also, if you were there, girls past a year, because Happiness Hill specifically, you had to be there a minimum of 1 full year. And I didn't. That was one of the rules that my room captain read me that first day. And I was like, wait, what? Pardon me? So I can't say fart anymore. And I'm here for a year.
Yeah.
What is this? Stop it. So if you were there past a year, older in age, you definitely got more responsibility, also more privileges. I got to go with the dorm moms once a month shopping, which was great because one of the dorm moms, the downstairs one, Miss Paula, I love that woman with my whole heart and soul. Like she was and still is amazing and did everything she could to insulate us. When she realized what was going on, because I asked her years later, why did you stay if you knew what was happening? And she was like, I didn't know how to leave you guys. I didn't know how to let that keep happening. I didn't know how to stop protecting you and be okay with myself.
Yeah.
So she stayed to do anything she could to cushion the blows, so to speak. But so going shopping with her was like freaking awesome once a month. That was amazing. And I loved it.
Yeah.
But yes, there was a hierarchy of abuse. They kept their hands pretty dang clean. We had what was referred to as wrecking crew. And if a girl tried to run, it was our responsibility to bring them back. And anything that happened to them between the time that we caught them and the time that we brought them back was not only encouraged and celebrated, it no one cared.
Wow.
I was the head of that group at one point, and so it was me and my hand-selected cronies that were literally mean girls, and I really hurt someone who tried to run at church. And we caught her in the woods. I brought her back. She needed stitches. She had broken ribs and she probably had a concussion. She
Oh,
got no medical care.
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So they didn't do anything. They
Nope,
just kept her there, didn't take
nope,
her to the hospital. Okay.
nope. No, we finished marching into church and she sat there and bled during the service.
Oh my gosh. I feel so bad for
And
her and for you guys to have to do
as
that.
an adult and as someone who is literally going into psychiatry as a profession, but also as the mom of a now well-adjusted, wonderful adult daughter, that's horrifying.
Yeah.
I was never a bully in my normal life, pre Happiness Hill.
Yeah.
I actually had been bullied from time to time. I was a protector. One of the only fights I got in, actually, two of the fights I got in junior high, one was because a group of kids was picking on a kid with Down syndrome, and I wasn't having it. And I jumped in and whooped some tail. Another one was my friend got attacked by a group of girls. I jumped in, it wasn't happening. That's who I'd always been. And now I was becoming the abuser. And as an abused child, yeah, there's a cycle of violence that happens a lot of time.
Mhm.
But knowing that I was encouraged and coerced into being a part of that for extra
Yeah.
privileges is it's disappointing. And you do what you do to survive, but that is the thing that I've had the hardest time forgiving myself for.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's I I had a 12-year-old girl by the throat, lifted off the ground in a hallway because she bumped into me. It like I just became this ugly human. And now, not because of that, I'm not trying to like do penance, but going into a space where my whole goal is to help people is it's just sad. It's really
Mhm.
sad.
There's, I don't know if it's sad. I find it honorable that you are taking
Mhm.
your place in it, but you also know what brought that on. There were
Oh,
outside
absolutely.
influences. That type of environment is set up and designed that way. I don't
It was
know.
for approval.
Jenny told you, but my parents worked with Lester Roloff, and my mom was the one who set up for it used to be called the Helpers Home before it was Jubilee Girls.
Oh,
She was in charge and she set up their system of that hierarchy and
yeah,
tattletelling on them and the enforcement. And so this was back in the 70s. So this was well baked into the process of
yeah.
how to corral and conform and mistreat kids later. So you ended up in God, I think of like a boat on a fast moving river. There's not much you can do except hang on
Yeah.
and try to keep from drowning. And the stuff you had to do sometimes is inappropriate and awful, but you were surviving. And I feel so bad, Johnna, that you had to do
It's
that.
not that one girl, which I would love to find her and be able to apologize. But the
Yeah.
others have not only forgiven me, but embraced me.
Oh,
And it it's hard to reconcile like what I know I did with what they say about me.
no. Uh-huh.
And it's also like you kept it light, you kept it fun, you tried to make it as good as you could for us. And I didn't, I still don't see that. I'm glad they feel that way. My biological mom says that since I was a little kid, that I've had what she calls my happy camper face. And it's that mask that you put on to show the world when everything is not okay and you smile. And I think about people like Robin Williams, those of us who have the most trauma and the most depression go out of our way to try to make others happy because we don't want people to go through what we do. And so I'd always been that happy camper kid. Our pastor of the church we went to with Happiness Hill nicknamed me Smiley
Mhm.
because I always just had a big old smile on my face.
Mhm.
And I was literally about to say, and he was a really nice guy.
Good for you for stopping that.
Yeah.
How could anyone who had a part in this be a really nice human?
And that's so funny because I think of him like a concentration camp. So what you're saying is like he was the nicest of the
Yeah,
guard at the
Right.
concentration camp, still in a really bad place
yeah.
and promoting bad things. And then, yeah, he's nice, but awful.
So
Yeah.
interestingly for me, Brother Palmer told my parents at my year that you need to bring her home. And they said, no, thank you.
Oh,
And he was like, yeah, no, she's ready.
yeah.
And they were like, no.
Oh man.
And why
So
do you think that is? Did they ever give a reason? Did you ever talk to
who
them
my
later on about?
dad was as a person, and both of my adopted parents have passed. So once I really started processing this, which took till last year,
Yeah.
I never got a chance to talk about it, confront them, have any conversation about it. We've just never talked about it. And I it was just his thing. Like when teenage girls became uncontrollable, off they went, or too old, or I don't know. He had a lot of his own trauma, and he was an abandoned child in the early 40s and was raised in a really strict Baptist orphanage until he was aged out and joined the army. So he didn't know anything but abuse. That is not an excuse because you can break the cycle. No one could ever say that I've abused my child. And she would be the first to tell you that. Even though I was an abused child, you have to choose to break the cycle. And not an excuse, but he did not choose that and did not know another way. He was all discipline and strictness, and that was who he was. So teenage girls were, I don't know if they were terrifying to him or what, but they told me I couldn't come home until I graduated from high school. I had a singular credit and I was halfway through my sophomore year. Yeah, it took me a year and 10 months and I finished and graduated with my diploma that is worth nothing. Yay, right?
Yeah,
It was really
that
fun to
sounds
find
about
that
right.
out when I got fired from a job for lying about my diploma. And I was like, I can present it to you.
Did it say Happiness Hill on it?
Oh, yeah, I have it.
And they're like, "What is Happiness Hill?" And they're like Googling Happiness Hill, and they're
I'm a
like,
very
Gosh,
organized young lady.
yes.
So here we go. Diploma of graduation.
"It's pretty legit."
Oh, it looks so fancy. And then it's like just like toilet paper. That's all you use it for. I
Yeah,
hate that for you. Oh my God.
Right.
like with a 3.7 or 3.8, dang it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In a year
that's
and
so
10
crazy.
months, I did be above and beyond a high school curriculum because it took me forever to get through my English courses because I just didn't wanna. And
What? You didn't want to diagram sentences?
stinking hanging prepositions, which I love to write now, so it's funny. Give me anything. Let me write a paper about it. Please don't make me do other things. Can I just write you a paper about it? It'll be so much better than anything else you want from me.
Yeah.
I actually made that deal with one of my professors. I was like, what if I didn't do these study guides anymore and just wrote you a paper? And he was like, bet. All right. So I would look at what he wanted and I'd write him a paper. And he was like, good. It's how
Yeah.
I learn.
Yeah.
So,
So after you graduated,
so now
then,
this is one of my babies.
oh, so cute.
We have a pair of boxers. We have Castiel and Crowley. So
Oh,
they're babies.
Adorable.
But
love
anyway,
that. Yeah. So after you graduated, then you finally went home, right? At what age?
so I was just over 18, a couple of months
Okay.
over 18. It was mid-December of 97, like the week before Christmas. And I tried so hard. Like I had a plan. I was going to stay the course. I was going to be a good little soldier. And I was going to help cook and I was going to help clean because the only thing I had been trained to do now was be a good little wifey robot housemaker.
Yeah.
And I was going to help with all of these things. And I had been accepted into Pensacola Christian College and was going to go there. So I was only even home for a few months until school started, whatever.
In this, yeah,
Yeah,
probably since you're saying you went home in December, you're probably home for a month or so before the first
I
semester
wasn't
started in
actually
January.
going until August.
Oh, so you had
So, but
9 months or
still,
so.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, 9 months. Gonna get back in the youth group and be involved. And I was so excited. And it lasted like 5.5 minutes.
of your excitement. I love it. I love it so much. Hey, hold on. Did you say that you got accepted to Pensacola
Yeah,
Christian College? What I love about them
it's a
is
full
that,
ride.
yeah, full ride, where they know that you don't have an accredited program. And so now they're like a not accredited college willing to take your not accredited diploma
Yep.
and teach you, but then you still can't do anything with that diploma when you're done.
We had
Right.
two options if we were graduating from Happiness Hill. Nothing else was acceptable. We could go to PCC or we could go to Hiles Anderson.
Wow.
They would not facilitate anything else for
Wow.
transcripts,
So
anything.
I think they got a kickback on that
Oh,
for
probably.
There
I
had to be. There had to
yeah.
be. And it doesn't even make sense because I went to Bob Jones University
And
and
Bob Jones was off
PCC,
the list.
which is weird because PCC was liberal to us. So I don't even know what their
There
stance
was
was on
some
PCC.
weird, and I keep meaning to research it because I know there was some weird, like, little scandal for a minute in the late 90s with Bob Jones that they fell out of grace for a minute and then it was back.
The only scandal that happened was they didn't allow interracial dating. And then
Oh, but
during,
that would have been acceptable to these folks, right?
but then during there was I think it was the Bush, was it Bush Gore? Yeah, I think it might have been Bush Gore. He came and spoke in chapel to kind of rev up everybody. And then we also had another guy that was running, a black guy. I'm trying to remember his name. And he actually called everybody out, the student body, the staff, the faculty, and called everyone bigots and everything. I didn't even know what the word bigot meant at the time. I'm sitting there as a freshman. I'm like, what does this even mean? I don't know what's
Right.
happening. And then I find out later that they were forced, Bob Jones University, the following school year was forced to allow interracial dating at that point because there was such a pushback after that happened that then they had to get permission. You had to get permission from your parents to date somebody outside of your race. But
That's
so
crazy.
there was always a caveat. There was always a caveat to it. But they didn't allow it one year, and then they had to allow it the following year. So that might have been the scandal, and maybe that's why you weren't allowed to go there or wasn't an option because they had changed the rules to allow it if you had your parents'
Right.
permission. That would make sense given the background that you're from, all of that. That would make total sense. Bob Jones University ended up in the news with this big whole thing about how they wouldn't allow interracial dating. And I was like, I didn't even know that. Like I was like, I was with my college sweetheart and I didn't have to worry about any of that, but I was like, okay. And then the very next year they had to allow it because there was like a bunch of lawsuits and stuff.
And speaking of that, we were predominantly Caucasian girls that were there in Happiness Hill. And there was one African American girl that came toward the end of my stay there. The way that they treated her, like the disparity
Mhm.
between how the rest of us were treated and how she was treated was night and day. And I didn't get it because, again, didn't grow up in a diverse place, but also didn't grow up in a super racist place either.
Yeah.
So it was confusing to me as this young person. I didn't even get it until much later why they treated her so differently.
It was just the color of her skin,
Yeah,
really? Oh, it's
yeah.
so awful.
And
Oh, so bad.
it's so sad. Are we
Mhm.
not instructed to love?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it
Exactly.
doesn't say love your neighbor as yourself as long as they're the same race as you.
Right.
That is
Right.
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
there. Uh,
Right.
I live in Dallas Fort Worth is a melting pot of just humans of
Yeah.
every size, shape, gender, sexual orientation, color, everything, culture.
Mhm.
I love it because I learn about other people and
Right.
their cultures and what are traditions for them. And I love learning those kind of things. I live in the most eclectic neighborhood. We're some of the only Caucasian people here, and I love it. Our
Mhm.
neighbors are nice and friendly, and hey, do you want a fajita? And hell yes, I want a fajita. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Whereas I've lived in a predominantly Caucasian neighborhood and no one even makes eye contact. Like, it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm glad we're talking about this. And I think this is something that we need to hit on more. It's not so secret part of the troubled teen industry where there's definitely mistreatment
oh,
and racism to people that are don't look like the owners. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And
one of the girls was sent there because she was in an interracial relationship. That was
yeah.
her only fault. That's why her parents sent her. And when
Mm.
she got home, she got right back with the dude and married him.
Oh,
Good
good.
for
Still
her.
married. And that's
Good.
great. But it's so troubling that is seen as this big thing. And it was so we weren't allowed, there was obviously no therapy. We were actually not allowed to talk about our past lives at all unless we were physically giving testimony
Oh
at
no.
a church. I can sing. And I, being a missionary kid, we had done the church circuit. I have sang in front of an audience of 5,000 doing that at Canton Baptist Temple. And I grew up doing that. So I was no stranger. And I am a tenor. So I am unique amongst women. And Mrs. Palmer was thrilled because now she had
Three
this
part.
whole extra bit.
Yeah. Now you could have three-part
Yeah,
harmony.
we I actually have multiple recorded CDs that I want to get my hands on so bad that we did in studio for Happiness Hill that we sold while we were in
Oh,
tour.
wow.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
And then they probably
I mean,
signed.
oh
I
yeah,
and then
oh yeah,
kept all the money. You guys, did
of
you get
course.
any of right? Yeah.
Nope. And I got to go on tour all the time because only tenor could
Right.
actually carry a tune and they knew I wasn't going anywhere. Like I was so submissive at that point that I was beating up other kids because they
Right.
wanted me
Yeah.
to. That's the
They knew.
epitome of
Yeah.
submissive. And so I got to go on a lot of tours.
Yeah.
And when I got up to give my testimony on tour, because I had been told this so many times that my parents sent me there because I was a drug addict and I was
Nuh-uh.
promiscuous. That's literally what I said.
No.
Oh, it gets better. To the point where I was celebrating up until a year ago that I was 27 years sober.
Oh, wow.
Still
So you
believed
were
it.
brainwashed into thinking that.
Still believed it. So
Yeah.
watching the program when it came out, one of the girls talks about finding the test that proved that she wasn't on anything when she got there. And I went,
Hmm.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Started really thinking, and it took me, my husband and I have been married for 25 years. Like we talk about everything. He's my best friend. He is 99.4% perfect. He is friggin' amazing. He is my human. And it took me about 4 or 5 days to even say anything to him.
Yeah.
And I just broke down. We were getting Andy's frozen custard sitting in the parking lot. And I just started bawling. And he was like, what is happening? You've been really quiet this week, but what is going on? And I was like, I don't think I ever did drugs. And he was like, come again. And I was like,
Hmm.
okay, okay, so hear me out.
Now you know,
Yeah.
terrible secret to him. I am not a drug addict.
Yeah.
I was like, so I watched this thing and he knew I'd watched it and we'd been talking a lot about it. And I was like, and I really started going through the old mental filing cabinet. And I don't remember ever procuring paraphernalia or drugs. I don't, and I was not quite 16 and a half when I went into Happiness Hills. So I lived in Springfield, Missouri, for goodness sakes, not like we're a drug capital of anything.
Yeah.
Meth now, but it wasn't then. Yay. So I don't remember there ever being a time where I couldn't get something and had a withdrawal.
Yeah.
I don't remember ever having a consequence of being high and doing something stupid. Like None of it.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's the thing
And
that's like with childhood trauma, anything could really bring up like a
yeah,
memory that maybe is
yeah,
suppressed. Like you were saying, you watch the program and you're like, oh crap, oh my
yeah,
gosh, I never was a drug addict. Like you had suppressed that because you had bought into that narrative that was told to you
yep,
so many times. And what I love about you, Johnna, is that you are able to go internal and you're able to say, hey, maybe this happened, maybe this didn't happen, but the things that I know happened, I'm going to take accountability
yep.
for.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
you have mended fences with some of the girls. You still want to find the
Yeah,
one girl. And now I would love to put a little bow around this episode and talk about briefly what you're doing now, which will then
yeah.
segue into the fact that we're going to be doing part two
Thank you.
with
Yeah.
you to talk about your studies and the amazing survey that you did with the
Yes.
TTI. And we always want to conclude our episodes with just a message of hope for people who are listening, ending on a positive note to just know that, hey, you can go through really dark times in your life and then you can come out on the other side of it and help other people. And that's what you're doing now. Just briefly walk us through where you're at now and then, how people can maybe find you on social media if you want
Sure.
people to find you.
How this started actually had nothing to do with my experience, which is really interesting. It's just evolved. So I was diagnosed with CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Usually PTSD is a single event,
Yeah.
or being in combat is the most common thing that we think about. So one, despite the length of time event, because I was an abused child, and then Happiness Hill. Mine is multifaceted, so it's complex, just like me, and also ADHD. And I learned a statistic when I got diagnosed with ADHD that 70% of women are misdiagnosed as bipolar
Oh, wow.
instead of ADHD.
Mm,
70% of women who have ADHD, who are diagnosed as an adult, are misdiagnosed as bipolar.
mm.
And my mind was blown. So I started researching because that's just how I'm wired, and went down the old rabbit hole. And I was like, this is something I can be part of this change. So I did 22 years of retail, and retail is dying. And I was in corporate, and life was not good. And it was time for a change. So when this came into my purview, I was already looking for what's next. And I was like, I'm going to go back to school, going to be a psychiatric nurse practitioner. So I'm actually in school right now. I am almost done with all of my prereqs and sciences to go into my BSN program. And then I will be doing my master's to do psychiatric nurse practitioner.
Love
So
it.
already on my agenda, we were already making plans for this. We had to get through our daughter's wedding because, good Lord, girls are expensive. Y'all, if you have
Right.
girls, start saving today. If you are expecting a girl, today is a good day to start saving. And hers was not big. It was like 100 people, 70 grand. Uh, uh,
Wow.
she's our only one. And baby,
Yeah, you got to do it. And
mommy wanted it to be
yes,
magical, and it was.
yes. Oh,
So,
good, good.
and mommy's first degree, she minored in design, so she may have taken
I
things a
love
little bit
it.
far.
Yeah.
But so that's what I'm doing. Then March, when the program came out last year, I watched it and went, I can help other people. And I already was a moderator of or admin for our own Happiness Hill social media. But then I started diving in and joining all these other pages and finding other survivors and started becoming active in them. And as part of my studies, I realized how little information is out there. There's a
Yeah.
lot of papers, there's a lot of articles about Paris Hilton or the program or these one offs, but there's not raw data. And so I decided I'm going to make my own survey. So I
Love it.
literally pimped myself out on every single TTI board, forum, social media I could find, and invited people to come take this survey. It is 100% anonymous. and it is geared toward mental health, obviously, since that's what I'm going into, long-term relationships, and just overall TTI experience, how it has impacted us long term. So that is still open as far as availability, and it will be because I'm still compiling that data because it's a lot. But I have 107 participants right now. You need 100 for it to be an official, recognizable, publishable study. I will be using it for my master's thesis when I'm done, and I will be publishing the
Oh, I
data.
love it. Good for
So
you.
I'm
Isn't that
happy to
awesome?
talk
Yeah.
about it right now, which
Right.
is what we're going to do later.
Yeah.
I went into a lot of diagnosis, pre and post TTI, including PTSD and CPTSD.
Yeah, good.
Why
Good.
were you sent versus why do you believe you were sent? That different.
Wow. Yes,
Have
totally.
you been in an abusive relationship post TTI? The suicide rates.
Yeah.
One of the most horrific, just I guess teaser, awful teaser, but for future, did you have suicidal ideations before, after, both, neither, whatever? How many people had never had a suicidal ideation before, but
Yeah.
have since,
Yeah.
is horrific.
Oh man. I cannot wait to talk to you more about
Yeah.
that. And because I think that it is what is gonna be part of the nails that drive this stuff home. Like it's the structure that brings about change. So very
Yeah.
beautiful, very wonderful, Johnna. And we
Yeah.
And
sorry.
so if you want to find that, there's actually, if you type in life after institutionalization survey, it is the first thing that pops up on Google. You will be able to find it.
Perfect.
All the different groups.
Good.
And ADHD, I forget.
Uh-huh.
So I use my TikTok sometimes. And I am this week's hyperfixation because she all over the place. But if you want to watch me craft and remodel things and talk about the TTI, that's where you can find me.
Oh, I love it.
Love it.
We really appreciate you being here, and
Yes, it was wonderful.
Can't wait
Good.
to hear more for sure. Healing is a process, a journey to be experienced, not just a destination.
You are not alone in this. It's okay to take your time, explore different perspectives, and find what resonates with you. Healing takes courage, and we believe in you.
Together, we can enjoy the ride.